going to move forward with the precedent. And I've kind of mentioned a lot of stuff with the precedent previously, so I'll mention it again as a review. There's the agenda, and there's the precedent, right? So I thought you guys mostly had this, right? So this is the precedent S600M.
You said we got the C.
And some of you have the C. So I'll talk about the C as well. It should be in here. And if it's not, I'll pull it.
What's the big difference between the C and the S?
What a perfect question.
A lot.
So here is an S. The next one would be a C. No, I'm just kidding. It's the engine. It just comes down to the engine. The S is a Peugeot engine, right? So the S is not just a Tier 4 final EPA compliant engine. It's also evergreen in California. So that's the big key. So that's what we're going to talk about. So quickly, here's where we are, right? Prior to 2013, here are the EPA regulations, right? So a few years before that, the EPA warned all the TRUs, transport refrigeration unit manufacturers, that they're going to have to follow the same emission requirements that they pushed onto the tractors. Everything with a diesel engine had to be Tier 4 final. Okay. Now that precedent greater than 25 horsepower that you see there above the Tier 4, CARB now, right? So EPA comes out with their regulation. California says, well, this is what we want you to do in California. California didn't think that we could continue with the same capacity on a trailer unit at less than 25 horsepower, and Carrier proved them wrong. Carrier's administration's decision to make their unit compliant was to derate their Kubota engine to run under 25 horsepower. We opted to go evergreen with the cleanest engine. So our unit, the precedent with the Peugeot engine, is a greater than 24 horsepower engine and meets these strict emission requirements, right? So we had to go from 7.5 NOx all the way down to 4.7. If you see the PM, right, the particulate matter, they were allowed 0.3, and now I have to go to 0.03, right? Huge change, big difference, right? So by meeting that, CARB says, oh, you guys are great. You can run forever in California. Okay. I think CARB guys, California, were thinking like straight truck. That's typically around a 7 horsepower engine. The current Yanmar that you're running today, the interim Tier 4, it's about a 34 horsepower engine. So they were thinking truck. They were thinking a straight truck could literally run a little dirtier. We proved them wrong. We can do a TRU with less than 25 horsepower. And the deal is that if you're under 25 horsepower, you can literally be a dirtier engine. The particulate matter changes, okay? So this just kind of shows you historically where we had to come down to 2013, right? So Tier 1, 1999, 2004, your diesel engines had to run cleaner, all the way down to this Tier 4 final. So back between 2008 and 2013, when the EPA say, January 1st, 2013, if you have a greater than 25 horsepower engine, you have to meet those strict requirements that you saw before. So during that time frame, Ingersoll Rand, right, who owns Thermo King, well, Thermo King actually went to Ingersoll Rand and said, hey, look, we're going to have to come up with a new engine. And they could do that. They could just get a compliant engine, dropped it into our current unit, and we're compliant, and then just add the cost of that new engine to the unit. Thermo King decided, you know what, this is an opportunity for us to actually go in and do a major design on our unit. And instead of just dropping a new compliant engine, let's see what kind of improvements that we can make to the unit. And during those years, they got together and built the precedent, designed and built the precedent, which is a totally different refrigeration architecture, and we're going to talk about that. Okay. The other thing too is if you're going to build cost, what they decided to do was, you know, let's just make it better, you know, more efficient. Also get that fuel economy and stuff. And the precedent can actually give you a payback over the years. That additional cost that you pay, the difference between a Spectrum and a precedent, just on fuel savings alone, you wind up recovering that money. So how did we get there? So the way we got to those strict emission requirements is one of the things that we added was a DOC, right? So it's a diesel oxidation catalyst, and that's what we use to reduce the hydrocarbons and the carbon monoxide. Right. So this is a Peugeot engine. So that blue there. Right. Oh, by the way, Peugeot is turbocharged, right? So the S600M, the Peugeot engine, has a turbocharger on it, which is kind of towards the top of the engine. So it's a little top to the back. So that all this blue, that's the trailer wall. So right away, right, it's a technician, what do you think is going to be your problem there? Yeah. Changing that DOC is going to be pretty tricky. You're not going to do it with the engine in the unit. That's the downside. The upside is you shouldn't have to change it. It's a passive system, right? That DOC is like a catalytic converter. The only reason why you would have to change it is if it got physically damaged. So yeah, if the guy pushes the forks through the trailer wall and punctures that, you're gonna have to pull that engine anyway. Yeah, so it's not a serviceable item. There's no servicing requirements to it. It's passive, so there's no moving parts. So you should never have to get back there. Right. So we've got a turbocharger. The yellow part there is your exhaust manifold, and then there's the DOC.
What about the turbocharger? Can you get to it?
Oh yeah, it's right on the top. It's more towards the top of the engine than the back. It's accessible.
Is that just a standard? What is it? Can't put a bear in there.
Well, what do you consider a standard? Yeah, it's, you know, it's kind of like, all right, so Peugeot is French, right? It's a French diesel engine company. Globally, they actually make more diesel engines than anybody. Globally, right? So not huge in North America. They're really penetrating North America primarily through Thermo King. But if you look globally, there's a lot of Peugeot diesel engines running around. And different applications, right? Cars and trucks and things like that. And now they're in transport refrigeration. So yeah, so they've actually been running these type of things in other applications. So pretty standard.
Didn't know how many problems are going to be with that.
What's that?
Didn't know if there were going to be any issues with the turbo.
Not yet. So, January 1st, 2013 came around. The S600, which was a single temp, was the very first thing that got put out there, right? That had the Yanmar motor in it. Then they came out with the S700, right, which is the deep frozen application on single temp. And then shortly right after that, they moved into the multi-temp. So then the S600M came about roughly last year. And but prior to all that, we ran them in field tests. So they built it up in the lab, they tested them. We actually put the engine out there on the road, right? Because I did have a customer when I told him all this lab testing we did, he said, I've yet to deliver to a supermarket from a lab, right? So his point is, you know, and why people don't typically embrace new technology to has been out there on the road and took a couple of hits and stuff. So, but the precedent has been running for several years. I myself tested them in Florida. I had customers testing units up until today where you guys embraced them and have them in your fleet. So it's been out there more than just last year, right? But yeah, those are valid questions to ask. But early on, you know, when you have brand new stuff, we actually had more software bugs than anything else. I think in the first year they fixed like 30 bugs. But it was all little stuff, right? Little stuff kept coming up. And then we were fixing that stuff from the field. You know, if you look at the multi-temp, the first major software release was CA6. Yeah, we're at CA11, but that's actually not too bad because we jumped from 6 to 10. So in the past 12 months, we really only had like 2 software changes. And the next software change is only because we have a Yanmar option that started this month. Our factory right now is shut down to transition to add Yanmar motors into S600Ms. So you'll have 3 engine choices as a multi-temp.
What's the warranty on it?
That's a major component, so it's like 4 years, 8,000 hours if you don't have an extended warranty. 4 years, 8,000 hours, yeah. Okay. The Peugeot engine, right, still talking S600M, is a common rail high pressure fuel injection system, right? So that's how we handle with the PM, the particulate matter, right? They do a lot of in-cylinder control of the PM, right? So improved fuel injection, so it is a cleaner combustion. That fuel pressure is like over 20,000 PSI fuel pressure. So don't be looking for fuel leaks with your bare hands while that thing is running, right? So high pressure common rail system. So you have a high pressure pump, right? So it's a high pressure common rail ejection pump. There's an added benefit to this. I don't know if you've noticed, but we have an electric lift pump up there by the fuel tank. You guys notice that? Yeah? Cool thing is no more manually priming the engine. Yeah. Yeah, and as long as you have software CA10 or higher, there's a soft key to actually prime the fuel system. You just press the key and it self-primes. Yeah.
Is there a bleeder screw?
You don't have to do anything. You press the key. Yeah. Yeah. So we gotta ensure that we have enough pressure here. Yep. Yep. So from the lift pump, you got the high pressure common rail injection pump, right? And then the common rail tube, high pressure pipes to your injectors, right? So you have common rail injectors. So this is also electronically controlled, right? So earlier I was talking about the ECU on here. So here's another concern when you're working on these systems is that, like in tractors, right? If you change an injector, you have to go in there. You got trim codes you have to adjust in your ECMs. You have the same situation here. Very quick diagnosis, right? So let's say injector number 1 fails. You get the code on the HMI. But if you looked at the DTC, it tells you exactly which injector you need to replace. But then the injector has alphanumeric code on it. Somebody needs to get back into the ECU and you have to program the trim codes in. That's another reason to pass that on.
On that software, does it have like a diagnostic test to do a cylinder cutout?
Has all that neat stuff. Yeah, you can run the engine. Yeah, gives you historical and accurate, up to date. You can look at pressures, all of it.
That's all. Is that in the unit through the display or that's laptop?
DTC, laptop. Anything that you communicate to the engine ECU has to be through the Peugeot software. They call it exodiag. Someone mentioned YSAD. That's the Yanmar version. The Peugeot version is called exodiag. And yeah, you need the software and the tool. I mentioned because it's there, right? And then your option as to how you want to use that. You got all brand new units. It's a major component. It shouldn't be an issue with the S600.
We're not gonna have this.
On a regular basis, is that going to cause any problems?
Nope. So it'll still, right, you're running out of fuel, so it'll still shut up. But the driver himself, if he refuels, he only has to go press the main menu key, and right there, once the soft keys come up in the standard display, it'll say prime fuel. He just presses the key. I mean, you'll have to probably tell him because it's new. It's new for everybody. No issue. ECU shuts it right off. Yep.
So we change the fuel filters.
In the C600M, the lift pump is there too. So even though it's the old Yanmar mechanical engine, we get the benefit of a lift pump. They just put it on all the precedents. It didn't matter, which is nice.
Every time.
Yep. Even the 600M. Now you have to be careful with the 600M is if you have both. If you have both S and C's, the lift pump looks exactly the same, but they're not. Right? They're running at different pressures because here we need more pressure. So the 600M, if you have both in your fleet, the only you're going to know the difference is the part number. Physically they look the same, but they do run a different internal pressure. So you can probably get away with putting the S600M on the C600, not the other way around.
Enough pressure, the pressure pump to increase.
Yeah.
It needs that much pressure for it to increase.
Yeah. So just be aware of the part number difference.
Why didn't they just make the pump?
There's probably a cost difference too. Remember, part of the reason we have a C is because it's less expensive, right?
The hydraulics and the water.
Yeah. It's all about fighting the competition.
Is that the one with time?
This is the one with the time about. I'm almost there. It's the other side of the coin, the ugly story. All right, hey, we have common rail high pressure fuel system. Cannot have the fuel coming in contact with brass fittings. All right, you can read up here, has to be nickel plated or stainless steel. If you continue with brass fittings, the sink in the brass breaks down with that high pressure fuel. And what do you think happens? Yeah, or starts clogging. Yeah, it starts breaking down. Where's it going to go? In the injectors, in that high pressure pump, it's going to start building up. Yeah. Now, if you go to your unit, and I've had customers come back to me and go, I looked and I only saw brass. In our latest kit, right, it's about the insert. It's what comes in contact with the fuel. So you may see the brass outside ferrule fitting part, but the insert, the thing that actually comes into the fuel, most likely it'll be nickel plated, but stainless steel works. So it's kind of back to the old adage. If you're working on the fuel lines and the fittings and stuff, and you remove something, you put back what you took off, right? Don't just go into a drawer and go, I just got a fitting here and stick it on. If it's an S600, this is something you need to make sure you pay attention to. Okay? So right, so those are all the negative impacts to the engine if you don't use the nickel-plated brass or stainless steel fitting and stay away from the brass. Misfires, more than likely you're replacing an injector. These we first introduced this, people did not want to hear about having to deal with an EGR, right? You guys working on tractors know the history there is pretty ugly. However, first rule is, with our system, we're saying it's EGR light, right? So this exhaust gas recirculation is not as much as you would run on those big bore tractors. It's actually a very small amount of gas that we're recirculating. So that's one, right? It's not as big a load, big a issue there. Oh, does somebody have a tool?
Yeah, I'm sending it around. I got both of them.
Let me doing that.
You what?
Nothing. That will allow you communication, but where's your software? It won't work without the software. It won't work. You need the software. But yeah, that's one version. That you have the two versions there, right? So anyway, so it's EGR light. Okay. So the tractor guy working on tractor guys, you know how it kind of works. Basically, we're using an EGR cooler and the engine coolant to cool that gas as it recirculates through the system, and then we're lowering the in-cylinder pressure, right? And that cuts back on that NOx, right? So that nitrogen and oxide emissions gets reduced. Another plus is the reason why we don't have a concern with our EGR system is we did learn from the tractor guys when their EGR systems would fail, right? They're done. They're done. Their engines are derated, shut down, guys dead in the water, right? So we learned about that. We designed ours not to do that. Ours, the EGR actuator valve, is spring-loaded closed. So worst case is if it fails, you're just done. You're not doing any EGR. The engine doesn't derate, engine doesn't shut down. You'll get an 800 code on your HMI, and it'll keep plugging along. So we don't shut down with an EGR failure.
What about cooler tubes failing? Leaky cooler?
We don't. On the Peugeot, you don't even have to service it. You do not have to clean the cooler. There's no servicing requirement. We did not have the same issues with our cooler. Yanmar is a different story. Yanmar does require service. You do have to get in there and actually cook the cooler. You have to get all that stuff cleaned out of there. Today, right now, and likely not to change, the EGR does not require any servicing. So it's replaced on fail. It hasn't failed yet.
On
On the Peugeot. Yep.
The one we're not getting, right?
Well, if it's a C600M, you don't have to worry about it because the stuff's not there. So it becomes a non-issue on the C, right? So if you have Cs, none of this stuff applies to you. If you do have the Peugeot, it is a good, robust system that works. We have not had any issues. No cooler leaks, none of that. Now we've had coolant leaks, but that's because of the thermostat housing. We had a seal that was incompatible with the coolant, which we're campaigning that. So if you have S600Ms, your unit will have the thermostat housing seal replaced. So we got the exhaust manifold plumbed to the EGR cooler, right? There's the intake manifold, the EGR pipe, EGR valve, and a connection to the coolant. There's the service intervals. You'll note, right? EGR system, maintenance free. Timing belt though, another story. Originally, the timing belt was supposed to last at least 12,000 hours. So what happened was, in testing, it didn't make it. Right? It's a non-interference engine. What happens if we lose a timing belt? Interference is done. It's done, right? So timing belt's an issue. So what Thermo King decided to do was, at 6,000, we replace the timing belt. We do it. Thermo King covers the first timing belt replacement. Bring it in, right?
Service tech on the road can't do it?
No, because you need special tools. You got to pin everything when you take the timing belt. You also replace the water pump. The water pump and idle pulley get replaced at the same time. So what it is a kit, right? You get a timing belt kit, and you replace it all at one time. Okay. Now, depending on the software in your unit, and this is key, okay, because I'm not sure how it is in Mountain Brower. I recommend you go in there and check it. And CA10 software, it might start with CA6, but it's definitely in CA10, which is the software you should have in there. There is a timing belt timer, right? So it counts up to the 6,000 hours. Yeah, so at I believe it's 5,800 hours, it does it as a check alarm. Okay? And then it'll continue running another 200, but it's defaulted in there to just be a check alarm, which is an issue if it gets to 6,000 and continues to run. Now there's a time frame where you're not sure where that thing will fail, and then we're back to an engine replacement. There's an option in guarded access to change that to a shutdown alarm. So we need to verify that. Like on Walmart, it's all programmed to shut down. And when it hits 6,000 hours, it cuts out. And you got to go into guarded access to clear it. So I would recommend we probably look at that.
And use an interference motor.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why the timing belt was a critical issue.
Boom, bang.
So two reasons, right? We definitely want the dealer to do this. Is we also want that timing belt back, because we're pressing Peugeot to give us the 12,000 hour belt. So part of the reason why we're paying to replace the belt is we need the old belt back so we can give it to Peugeot and they can continue to do their R&D and get us to 12,000 hours. Coolant, pretty standard stuff. And then you notice at the bottom, the DOC is also maintenance free. And it says replace if failed, but again, it's passive. It's not likely to fail. And then all the other stuff, lube, oil, fuel filter, it's the same standard 3,000 hours, which apparently you guys do it too. But the OEM recommendation is still 3. Hey, and if we're paying for this at 6,000, right? Worst case is you put another 6,000 belt at, we're back at 12. So we met our commitment. Peugeot now needs to meet theirs, but.
What happens if you can't get it in 6,000, it goes to 7,000 or something like that?
I think they've actually gone up to 8, but they got real conservative, right?
I thought we coded it so it didn't do it.
Yeah, but you can still clear the code. So to his point, right, and it's not defaulted to shut down. So let's say you get a unit that nobody goes in and sets it to shut down, so it's a continual check alarm. You think drivers will possibly continue clearing it if they can to get it to run? So his point is, if I get one of those, what happens? You're probably okay, another 1,000, maybe even 8,000, but anywhere between there, it could possibly fail. Oh, by the way, one of the reasons why my customer Walmart wants it to shut down, if your driver is the one that keeps clearing it and you lose the engine, you think warranty is going to recover it? No.
That's what I'm asking. If it happens at 7,500 hours.
You're paying for an engine.
So anything over 6,000 hours, you're paying for an engine. So you got to get it in before 6,000.
At 6. At 6. You hit 6. Although, to your point, to be safe, if you brought one in at 5,800 hours, the moment it set the check alarm, we'll pay for that. We'll replace it. We'll replace it at 5,800 just because of that issue.
But not at 6,100.
Heck no. Why? It's 6. It's 6.
That's the window.
We'll do it earlier, but not after. Now, I mean, if you brought it in at 6,000 in 1 hour, you know, of course, we'll do it. The problem is, we'll pay for the belt replacement, but we're not going to pay for the engine if you lose it. Because of, that's considered misuse, right? I'm on the record that I warned you. Replace it.
Edit it out.
Edit it out.
That's in the blooper reel.
All we heard was
Free engine. Yeah. Try to convince the dealer that, right? I'm not the dealer. Yeah, you bring it into here. Mr. Ritchie's not going to pay for that engine. It's a very expensive engine, by the way, right?
He will. He likes all those trailers.
Yeah. No. I've had to tell a lot of bad news to customers who have burnt up truck engines, straight truck engines. We had a little overheat problem. So what we started requiring was downloads, right? So if you had a straight truck engine fail, the warranty claim had to include a download, and we would see the driver literally clear the code 100 times. If he'd have stopped at a dozen, we probably wouldn't have burned up the engine, right? So, yeah, those painfully got denied. Customers had to pay for engines because their driver continually cleared the code.
Yeah, there's something wrong with this unit. I got to clear the code to get the run.
Because I'll be honest, right, if you get a shutdown code and I'm in the middle of a delivery, I got like 3 stops to go, but if I clear it, this thing runs for another 15, 30 minutes? Will I fault the guy? No. It's when he finished that delivery and then continued doing that for 2 weeks.
That's an issue.
That's an issue. That's an issue. So yeah, so the default is check. Look at maybe going in there and setting it to shut down. And it will shut down, and it'll show you the count on the hour meter. So common rail versus the current mechanical engine. Electronic fuel injection system, we got the emission reduction components, the EGR, the DOC. I already mentioned the electric lift pump, easy prime. Oh, hey, we went back to glow plugs. Yeah, so no air heater. The glow plugs are controlled by the ECU, so preheating is all through the ECU. It's easy to diagnose the glow plugs too. You can diagnose them individually.
So you say it is 4 instead of just 1? No.
Yep, yeah, so that you have 1 air intake heater, you have 4 glow plugs, yep.
So if one of them go bad, you still have the other 3 to wear out.
Yeah, but it'll code out, and the DTC will tell you exactly which glow plug it is.
For 2,000?
Yeah, or you call the dealer. I would call the dealer. So that's the designation for the Peugeot engine. It's not a TK486 or TK488. It's a DV6NR. The Frenchies changed our designation. Just FYI. Greater than 25 horsepower, it's an electronic engine. Hey, look at the RPMs. We normally run 14 something, 2200 high speed, right? Look at that. We're now at 1250 low speed and 2050 high speed. Just FYI, ECU controls it, no adjustments. It's pretty accurate.
Is that an overhead cam engine?
I believe it is.
Single overhead?
Mm-hmm. Evergreen in California. So, and by the way, all this stuff and more is in the maintenance manual. There's your overhead cam. Cooled electric EGR. Okay, here's the big deal right here. See the bottom? Aluminum block, cylinder head. Here's the big deal. It doesn't to us, it does to your bosses.
How much more you can put in the grip?
Yeah. The Yanmar engine's a lot heavier, like 100 pounds. Can you fit another pallet in there?
A couple more cases of beer in the back.
It's a big deal to the company. Yeah, no, well, the guys who counting pennies is profit to the company, right? An extra pallet, I'm finding out myself, actually talking to customers, an extra pallet is actually a huge big deal. Huge big deal. Yeah, huge. Another reason why we were looking at this. So the engine differences, right? It's all give and take. So we gain additional weight opportunity, but we had to inherit a timing belt, an aluminum block engine. That's why it's turbocharged too, I think. Needed some more power. Yeah.
But it's still like 25 horse.
No, this is greater than 25.
Okay.
It's 34 and a half, I believe. This is 30, actually we earn half a horsepower.
Now, when you traverse in between the Yanmar and the Peugeot, do they have universal bell housings? I take it the compressor's universal to it, or is it from that?
Yeah, no, right. So I'm going to talk about this a little later. It's still directly coupled, right? So yeah, you have a coupler. You have the compressor directly coupled to the engine. There's a coupler there. Technically, yeah, you can go like interchangeable. That's why this summer, Thermo King is offering a a Yanmar version, right, an electronically controlled common rail engine into the multi-tap. So the Yanmar does not have a timing belt, but it's heavier.
But it also wouldn't be able to be swapped in there because of the wiring on it.
It's not a direct swap. Not a direct swap, yeah.
Hey, is that timing belt going to trigger an alarm at 12,000, 18, every 6,000?
Yeah, so what happens is if you hit 5,800 to 6,000 and you change the timing belt, you reset. You reset the timer.
6 more
So,
seconds.
yep, so it starts up again.
You reset the timer to the HMI or to the...
It's in HMI. The timer's in the controller, so it's in the SR4, right? Yeah, it's just like a maintenance alarm, right? If you had an alarm set so that every 2,000 hours you were getting a service reminder, it's basically a service reminder, but it's programmed in there because of the severity of the failure. Yeah, catastrophic, big time catastrophic, right? It's set up as a short alarm, which most maintenance alarms are just logged. This one, you have the option to shut down the engine. And that's why I have to keep harping on you. Infinite wisdom, the programmers defaulted it to check. Where I would think most customers would want that sucker to shut down.
Well, if it's loaded, you can't shut it down.
But you can clear it.
Driver should be able to get guard access.
He can't, but you can.
Not halfway down the road, we can.
Yeah. You guys don't like mobily go out, right? If a driver broke down halfway through, is he going to a dealer? Do some of you guys do that?
We only go so far.
Okay, yeah.
But once you clear it, it's cleared, and he can put it back in the fleet.
Yeah.
See, that's the problem.
Yeah, but so what happens is, so I remember I said it starts at 5,800. It gives you a little warning. So it gives you 200 hours where it doesn't shut down. It doesn't shut down until if you turn it on. If you turn it on, it doesn't shut down until you hit 6.
Oh, it's got a check and 50.
Yep. So you get So it's so it escalates, right? Which is good. It gives you a warning. 5,800, check alarm. It's there. He can clear it, no problem. Even if he doesn't clear it, it's just going to be there. It'll run. If he runs an additional 200 hours and you enable it, then it shuts down. And it'll keep shutting down. So even if he clears it, tries to run it past 6,000, as long as you enabled it that way, it'll just keep shutting down. So you have to keep clearing it.
Is there a fuel screen on this one?
No need for a fuel screen because we have the strainer and the lift pump, and then the fuel filter is more robust. It's a tighter micron. It's like, I think, like 5 microns. Like the green one. So we went away from the green one. Now it's an element. So it's a black plastic housing, and you're changing the filter element for the fuel filter. But I think it's the same standard. So no need for the inline screen.
I just want to make sure we wasn't missing one somewhere.
Nope, you're right. So if you look at the spectrum, if it's got a green filter, there's also a strainer up there by the filter, right? So you got a clear bowl. So you can look at all the big stuff that's floating around. You just clear that bowl out. And then the green filter is a very super heavy filter, so no inline screen.
All 3 engines have the same filter?
Now, yeah. Yep, they didn't change that. That's all the same.
For all the filters at one time.
Well, that's a good question. I'll have to look.
Oil filter is different than
The oil filter's different, but we're talking fuel, right?
fuel
Yeah.
filters are the same.
Yeah.
They're all the click on.
Yeah, the Peugeot oil filter, there's a higher capacity in the engine. There's more, I believe, more oil in the Peugeot.
It needs to be pre-filled.
It does.
The only one you have to pre-fill.
The Peugeot oil filter needs pre-filled.
The oil filter, yes. The fuel filter, no.
Because we have the lift pump. But oil filter.
They actually don't want you to pre-fill the fuel filter, but you actually prime the oil system too, and there's a key for that. So when you do your oil filter changes on the S600, Mike's point, you pre-fill oil filter, I think it's 1 quart in the filter, and then hit the prime key.
If you don't, it's like starting an old Mac without pre-filled oil.
Oh, so it has a prime function also?
Yeah, it does.
It's a remote oil filter.
What's that?
It's a remote oil filter. It's not connected to the engine.
It is. It is.
It's got lines run to it, or?
No, it's directly connected to the filter housing on the engine. It's right in front. It's not that different than the MR. It's just internally it's different.
Yeah, we don't want that motor.
Which one? The Peugeot?
You're right.
Why not?
What's that? I said, we don't want the Peugeot motor.
Why not? You got something against the French?
No.
It's actually a pretty reliable engine. The timing belt aside, I mean, and nobody likes the timing belt, right?
Oh, I can just see them
Yeah.
throwing the oil filter without priming it. 2.5 hours.
About 3 roughly, 3 to 3.5 hours. 4 or 5, 4 or 5.
And then you got buy switches too, right?
Yeah, it's a set, it's a pin set. Yeah. So every time you change the timing belt, you change the water pump. It's just a kit. You're already in there, it's under the timing cover. The water pump is under the timing cover, so it makes sense, you just change it all while you're there.
That primed oil is new, but the filling the oil filter on the Peugeot motor, yeah, we don't have to worry about it, we don't have them. All right, but it's got to.
You guys are in Texas, right?
Yes.
Do you guys ever run west all the way to California?
No, as far as we go is Roswell, New Mexico.
New Mexico?
El Paso.
So not likely to get them. If it's like most customers on the West Coast, even like Arizona, New Mexico going west, so potentially if you were going into California, those are the customers who are getting the S600. And if you're in California, obviously you want an S600 because after 7+ years, you have to do something. Or not run that unit in California. So,
Yeah, we don't want our trucks climbing big hills.
yeah. And the C600, and I'll talk this in a little bit. Remember I kept mentioning RPM settings and all that? And I think Mike actually mentioned it's crucial in the C600 that, that it's adjusted correctly. There's actually a process. Because typically, right, that Spectrum SB, you're just high-speed cool, get it to 14, get it to 22, you're good. You just make the adjustment high-speed cool. And in the C600, you also have to take note of suction pressure. You got to build up the suction pressure because while you're making the adjustments, you want to make sure that the compressor is loaded so that the engine's loaded. Yep, it's in here. So, and I'm going to give you this PowerPoint so you'll have the slide as a reference. It's also in the maintenance manual, right? Maintenance manual. Oh, here's the serial number on the engine if you need it. See it right there?
On the front?
Yeah, it's on the side too.
That's on the back.
Yeah. Unit serial number, we also gave you this. We can look it up in a computer, but you can read the one that's actually facing the side of the unit. Yeah, mirror. You probably should never need it. Here's the air circuit, right? Air filter, the air filter is an element now, right? You just pop in the element in and out. It doesn't have that big plastic piece that also goes with the filter, kind of a material waste there.
Preload with those.
Sucking in the air, going through an airflow meter, right? Because of the turbo, we also have an intercooler. Right, so there's the turbo, DOC, out the muffler, Egr valve and Egr cooler if you're going to circulate the gas. Got a water outlet box, right? So the cooling circuit, coolant line through the Egr cooler. There's a restrictor in there. Water inlet box. The water pump is under the timing cover. So I think it's one of the reasons why we want to go ahead and change the you already have the timing cover off. You got access to the water pump.
It comes as a kit, you can't just get it out.
Yep.
Everything comes.
All one.
So if the water pump goes, we'll
Get everything.
time kit.
Yeah, just change it.
You can't get it separate. If you get any water or any fuel or whatever on that ballot,
Oh yeah, the belt has to be, yeah.
you're gonna get water on it, you can't pump anyway.
Yeah.
do the $400 kit, or you can do a $15,000.
Yeah, I don't think it's quite that much, but it's probably about half that maybe. Yeah, I don't think it's quite that much.
I bought 4.
Already? Peugeots?
I'll send you a few.
Peugeots?
Yep,
Who's the customer?
here in Charlotte.
Really? Hey, do you have
I think it was still on the floor last time I was over.
do you have any customers with the thermal housing kit? The campaign thermal housing kit? Oh, I need 3. I gotta call somebody. Yeah, for the campaign.
They just released like 1,000 of them.
Yeah, but one of my dealers isn't getting it for some reason. I don't know why. I told him to. Anyway,
Last Thursday.
I'll have to check on it, but for some reason the guy's not getting it. So, anyway, I'll have to talk to Richie. Hey, the radiator. You ever notice where the coolant reservoir tank? Yeah, it's way up there. Yeah, doesn't that suck? Hey, we ran out of space. Had to go somewhere. The radiator is also, so, because you have 2 condensers now, right? You have a roadside and a curbside condenser. The radiator is a whole separate coil now, right? It's not a split coil like on the SB. So you have a condenser coil, and then right behind it is the radiator coil. On the other side, this is the roadside, right? Curbside, I think, right? When you're facing the unit, it's the left side. Anyway, you have that condenser, and then the intercooler is below that. So you have a condenser, intercooler, condenser, radiator behind it. 2 separate, they're all separate pieces, separate components. So that expansion tank, I know it's way up there, but get a big ladder. So coolant drain port, and here's your water pump behind the timing cover, the inlet to the expansion tank, water pump inlet from the EGR cooler, outlet box. The trailer we have here, is it a S, do you know? Or is it a S?
They have a video out there.
Okay.
You know, you should go look at it. The new one will have a yellow dot on it.
Yeah. We'll flip through the pictures. We're going to go out here in a little bit. Thermostat located inside the box, water pump sensor, cooler.
That whole deal there, black.
There's a whole valve.
That's where you'll see your first water.
It'll be early on, yeah.
First 6 months.
Yeah.
But the one
About 600 to 800 hours, roughly.
we've had to fix in the factory since 2 months ago.
Something like that.
You
Yeah.
shouldn't see it at all, but if you do see a water leak, that's where it's going to be.
At the sensor or at the coolant, the outlet?
At the housing. At the housing, yeah. Yeah, it's the seal in the housing that's causing the issue.
There's a gasket behind it that wasn't quite up to par with the coolant system. That's the coolant itself, so it was eating it up. Yeah.
It's was it nitrate? It needed to be like a nitrate-free coolant. Well, we didn't have nitrate-free coolant. So if you use a nitrate-free coolant, you may not have seen it. So like shops where you're using the same coolant that you use in the trucks, if it was nitrate-free, the more expensive coolant, typically wouldn't see the leak. But we want to keep the coolant standard across all the units. So we're going to go ahead and campaign that seal so that it all matches.
It goes from like a blue seal to a black seal.
Yeah.
And then if it's updated, there should be a yellow stamp on the housing.
Yeah. All you have to do is just give the serial number to the dealer, and they'll tell you what's going on there. Here's the oil circuit. That's my little thing. Oil pump, pressure relief valve, got a coolant oil heat exchanger through the filter, pressure relief, piston nozzles to the cylinder head. It does have hydraulic valve lifters, no valve adjustments, as long as you are maintaining your scheduled maintenance. Should be good. Got a banjo bolt there. There's a screen inline to the pump, oil to the turbo. Here's the fuel system. Right, so we have an electronic lift pump right above the fuel tank. through the fuel filter, high pressure pump, and there's a ton of sensors on these engines. You got fuel temp, coolant temp, fuel pressures, all kinds of sensors on there. To the common rail. If you ever saw a physical fuel leak, if you crack any of those high pressure pipes, yeah, you have to replace them. You can't just tighten it back up. Yep. Yep. Then return line back to the tank. Camshaft position sensors, an oxygen sensor, an oil pressure switch. Anything that's related to the emission system is actually a longer warranty.
I think I saw 7.
Yeah, and I think the 7 is extended. I think the basic's like 5. It's just a little higher than the major components. The full emissions systems by EPA rule has to have like a minimum 5-year warranty. So even though we have 4-year major components, because of the emission systems and the EPA rules, we have to follow their required warranty. So unlikely, but let's say the EGR fails, even though you can still run the engine, actually may get better fuel economy because you have no more EGR to circulate. By law, you have to get it fixed, and we have to fix it within that warranty period. Yeah. We gotta have clean air. Gotta breathe.
Put a delete plate on it.
So there's the EGR valve. It's easy to get to. Most of the stuff is actually easy to get to. The turbo is a little tricky, but you can still get it. It was actually harder installing you guys still installing your own units in some of the places, right? Yeah, did you install any precedent ones with the Peugeot?
No,
yeah, it's a pain because you do have to remove some of those components above the engine to get that middle bolt. But other than that, it's easy. Fuel temp sensor, boost pump pressure sensor, and then there are your glow plugs, crankshaft position sensor, fuel temp sensor, fuel pressure regulator solenoid, fuel rail pressure sensor, all kinds of sensors on this friggin' thing. Coolant temperature sensor, all connected to the ECU. Hi, so you see up there the PCM, that's your acronym for Peugeot. It's a Peugeot common rail motor. Pagat.
Did you give them the charging procedure for the
Charging, refrigerant charging? No, not really. We probably should talk about that. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, what was happening was some of the installers were in such a big hurry that they were causing premature failures of the discharge pressure transducer. They were blowing the little diaphragm inside the pressure transducer by the way that they were charging up the system. So now we've published specific refrigerant charging procedures for the multi-temps. Turbocharger, about 6 pounds of boost pressure, it's 10 max. Wastegate actuated by boost pressure. I beat up the timing belt enough. Originally, we were looking at 12,000 hours, but now we're going to go ahead and have the dealer do that first one somewhere around 6. It's considered like a warranty service.
Are those removable, the sleeves?
Yeah, I think so.
Is it a wet sleeve or?
I'm not sure. I haven't broken one down, so yeah. Yeah, we really, well, except for Mike telling me that he's had that issue, my customers have like 1,000 units, and the only issues I've had were the coolant leaks. Yeah. There's actually 2 campaigns on it. There's a software campaign, the thermostat housing campaign, and then there's an air deflector that they want us to change. So, not a big deal. So, but yeah, I've not yet have lost a Peugeot engine.
That's at Walmart?
Yeah, Walmart has the most for me to deal with. Yeah. Yep. So Mike mentioned we have a larger oil filter. The hydraulic lifters and some sensors. And it's talking about different than Yanmar. It's that we have 2 common rail electronic controlled engines. And now today customers can potentially have all 3. 4 if you count the Spectrum SB. So before we talk about the C600, let's go look at the S.